You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Flipping the Birds. I'm Corey Nido, filling in for our fearless leader, Brian Cameron, alongside David Neese. David, how are you, man?
Doing great. Looking forward to finally talking about what we watch all these other 17 games for, the postseason.
Absolutely. We do wish Brian the best. He went to Jersey to see some family, and guess he can't handle the cold anymore, David. He was in the 20-degree weather, and now he's a bit under the weather, but we certainly hope that he and his family are feeling better. Just a little joke there, as Brian and his family are enjoying life in sunny Florida. I certainly will take Florida weather right now. It's been pretty bitter up here just outside of Philadelphia. I don't know how the weather is down where you are, David.
Yeah, it's been about the same. Today wasn't bad. It got up to like 50. So.
Oh, that's better than what we had. We did not come close to 50 here in Montgomery County. Well, let's get this episode started. We're going to start with some housekeeping. A couple of notable updates that came out this afternoon. Lane Johnson, reported by Jeff McLean, is expected to practice tomorrow. That is the first time in a long time. You have to go all the way back to November 16th. The last time Lane Johnson was able to take the practice field and do any type of football activity. That's huge news for the Eagles, David. We obviously know how important he is to this offensive line. We obviously know the record for the Eagles when he plays and when he doesn't. But this Lisfranc foot injury, they're very tricky. They're going to have to make sure that he is 100% to go. I would imagine he's going to do everything he can to get in this game. And then Nakobe Dean is expected to play on Sunday, according to Vic Fangio. So right off the bat, some promising news there for the Eagles.
Yeah, especially you want Lane back. I mean, because the Eagles might be at a little bit of a disadvantage in depth there with Brett Toth. He's in the concussion protocol. That could potentially be, a big loss. So, yeah, having Lane back is critical. I think he probably could have come back a week or two ago. I think they just kind of slow played this thing. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him back. It'll change everything out there on the edge, on the right edge there.
Well, we mentioned our fearless leader. He shows up, says, hate the cold. It's ruthless. It certainly is. And then Daniel says hello and happy Tuesday, everyone. Happy Tuesday, Daniel. Thanks for joining us. And we've got a fun show to bring you guys here today. We're not going to beat a dead horse on this episode. If you've been listening to the radio stations, if you've been watching TV, you know the biggest question, the biggest storyline of that loss on Sunday was if it was the right decision to play or not play the starters. David, myself, Brian, we all kind of gave our 2 cents in the episode last week, but Washington does end up beating the Eagles 24-17. Eagles had a chance, though, David. They were up 17-10, but then offense just completely falls flat again for another quarter, outscored 14-0. The secondary was atrocious. Didn't get a whole lot of pass rush. Tank Bigsby was really fun to watch, but just your quick analysis of the game.
Yeah, I'll just touch on a couple things. One, I think you saw why Quinyon Mitchell and Adoree Jackson were not out there, because if one of them got hurt, it's over. It's they have nobody back there who can do anything. I think it also may have tempered expectations for Tanner McKee. I don't think we'll be listening to the Tanner should be QB1 stuff that much anymore. It was his first game that he kind of looked a little off target and everything. But again, what he does is kind of hard. He comes in, it's his first start in a year. I mean, it's just tough sledding for that kind of thing. But I think you saw that the way the Eagles offense is structured, his lack of mobility is a little bit of an issue there. And speaking of mobility, many people have questioned the health of, Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson all season. And I think you saw the difference in what two healthy linemen look like getting down the field with Cameron Williams and Drew Kendall. Especially Kendall, he was a difference. His burst off the snap, getting to the second level was just amazing. And it benefited, Tank Bigsby all night. And that's not to take any credit away from Tank, because he fought through arm tackles, powered his way over linebackers, DBs, and then you mentioned the play calling. Inexplicably, he doesn't touch the ball for the final 17 minutes of the game. I mean, that's malpractice. I don't know what else to say, but it is a game they could have won. They should have won despite resting people. I think we both kind of said we thought they should have rested, 5-6 guys, whatever, but they still should have tried to win until the half. And at that point, had they been able to put another touchdown or two up, and they probably likely would have, they'd have seen the score was 13-0 Lions at halftime. I mean, It was right there for them. They're going to just go into the analytics about it and say there's only a 5% difference in hosting the game, the second game, whether they won this one or not. I don't know where they come up with this stuff, but that's the number that they like to put out there, that they don't think it was that big of a difference. And they're in the same position this week as they were last week. If they win and Chicago loses, the second round game in the divisional series will be, right there back in Philadelphia. So that's about all I have to, say about that. I agree. It was pretty meaningless outside of that. And it was also nice to see Jake Elliott come through in some windy conditions out there, because they weren't perfect conditions, and he could be a big role in the postseason. It was nice to, see him the past couple of weeks kind of make some of those kicks.
Absolutely. Brian here saying, can we start Kendall over Jurgens? Was able to speak with Kendall after the game, and he kind of said, in so many words, he was wishing he would play this year. Obviously, he said, I understand that's not my situation, and all I can do is just continue to work hard and be the best that I can be. So it'll be interesting to see how he progresses throughout the season. Our buddy Duck chimes in. Patullo took defeat out of the mouth of victory. Malpractice to not run Tank for a quarter and a half. I 100% agree, considering he was running 7 yards per carry. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you relied on Tank Bigsby on that go-ahead touchdown drive in the third quarter. It was a short field, but he ran it 6 times of the 8 plays they ran for 20 yards and the touchdown, and then they don't use it at all. Looks like we've got a Seahawks fan in the chat here. Caleb says Seahawks would smoke the Eagles, total domination. We will see if that comes to fruition if those teams meet. And Duck again, at least Williams looked good on the O-line. Hunt and Trot Jr. looked good. Absolutely. Trot Jr. was phenomenal. I spoke with Jihad Campbell after the game, and I asked him what it was like playing alongside him for a majority of the game, and he just called him a dog. You can hear the full answer on my Twitter, but he said basically if anybody were to go down, there's no lack of trust in what Jeremiah Trotter Jr. can do. He led the team with 12 tackles. Really impressive showing by Trot Jr. And you mentioned the injuries, that's why they didn't play Quinyon and Adoree'. Of course, they didn't, because that's why. I mean, people want to rag on Adoree' Jackson still. There is a significant drop-off from Adoree' Jackson to Kelee Ringo and Jacorian Bennett. Maybe more than a lot of people realize. So there's certainly something that the Eagles are going to have to address in the offseason, whether it's drafting a couple corners in the draft, if it's trying to make a big-time trade in the offseason. We'll see what Howie Roseman does in terms of roster construction. But the craziest thing was being in the press box, and it almost simultaneously happened. The Lions kicked the game-winning field goal, and then Tanner McKee missed Granson, I believe, on that out route to the sideline that would have kept that drive going. And then that just sucked all the air out of the stadium. So the Eagles are the number 3 seed. They will have at least one home game. They are taking on the San Francisco 49ers, and we're going to talk about that here as we progress. And the reason why I was pushing for some of the starters to start, I know, you're not playing Jalen Hurts, you're not playing Saquon Barkley perhaps, but I would have liked to have seen them play the first half, try to build a lead. The reason being is because of what we're going to show you right here is this is pretty significant. I mean, the third seed have only reached the Super Bowl 5 times since 1975. The last team to do it were the Chiefs in 2023. It's happened sporadically since. Obviously, the number 1 seed, they dominate, making the trip to the big game 55 times. Number 2 seed, 24 times. We saw that with the Eagles last year. Surprisingly, the 4 seed has made the Super Bowl double the amount of times as the 3 seed, and then the 5 and 6 seed obviously below there as well. And now with the expanded playoffs, we'll see if a 7 seed will somehow try and sneak in. But your thoughts on this graphic, David? And I know you mentioned a cool little trend that you think the Eagles could potentially have happen here with them winning their 3rd Super Bowl as a 3 seed.
Yeah, that's wishing a luck. But yeah, I mean, they won their first one with the 1st seed. They won their second one with the 2nd seed. So might as well just keep it going. Maybe we can go 1 through 7. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, the graphic doesn't lie. The stats don't lie. I mean, that it is more difficult. The only thing I think that benefits the Eagles this year is in past years, I think the difference between, a lot of these teams was greater. I don't think it's like that this year. I mean, if I'm any of the other 6 teams in this postseason, the team I want to play least is Philadelphia. And it doesn't matter if they were 1, 4, 6. It doesn't matter where they were. Their experience, their talent, they have the ability to just bury any of these teams at any time. I know somebody earlier, chimed in as a Seahawks fan. Their defense is legit. There's no doubt. But one of the things you measure a lot of these games, what it comes down to, is poise of the quarterback. And Jalen Hurts has proven he can do that. I don't know that the Seahawks quarterback has, been able to show that at this time. And, you saw it in the postseason last year as well. So I think that is the thing that the Philadelphia is going to rely on the most, is just the fact that they have, a lot of experience. And we all were worried about having seeds and having who they're playing. But I've been in the locker room. You've been in the locker room. There is not one player on that team who gives a damn if they're playing at home, on the road, if they're playing the Rams, if they're playing the Packers. It didn't even come into their thoughts. They just don't care. They think they're the best team, and they think their style of play travels anywhere, and they're ready to go. It doesn't matter who they face.
Yeah, and you're right. That was the same message on Sunday. I mean, we were talking to some of the players, and they actually asked the media who the first round matchup was because they weren't paying attention. They weren't worried about it. So I think it's a great mantra. I think that's what Nick Sirianni has been able to instill with this team. And they're going to try and buck this trend here. Again, just 5 3 seeds have made the Super Bowl, with the last being the Chiefs, of course, in 2023. And I think this is a team that can do it. Now, we talk about this offense, and we talk about Kevin Patullo and, again, the play calling. How do you not have Tank Bigsby, get any carries in that fourth quarter or over the last 17 minutes of the game? It really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So with that being said, do you think that they have an easier path as the number 3 seed as we pull up the bracket here? Because if Chicago wins, the Eagles will go to Chicago. If the Rams win and the Packers win, well, the Eagles are back home against the Rams. I almost lean towards rather going to Chicago to take on the Bears than go and try and take on the Rams. Maybe it's a little being scared that the Rams are just due against the Eagles, but I don't know. I would rather take my chances against Caleb Williams in a big game opposed to Matt Stafford, who has been one of the front runners for the MVP.
Yeah, and again, I think all of those analytics played a role into what the Eagles were thinking too. Again, they're not scared of playing the Rams. They don't think about it like that. But to your point, if you're on the roulette table and you keep betting black, eventually red hits. And that's what, most fans are worried about. So, yeah, I do think their path is not as difficult as some would have thought by being the 3 seed. Again, you win this game and then you go to Chicago. If it was the other way around, they'd have had the Packers in this round, and like you said, likely the Rams in round 2. And a lot of people think that should be, are the 2 best teams, and that's how the championship game would come down. And if things could go their way, that's exactly maybe what we'll get to see. So, I'm unconcerned about any of that. I've thought since, training camp, the Rams were the biggest threat. So in my view, I would want to play them last just to get them out of the way.
You see Doug saying Seattle's going to suffer from Darnold doing Darnold things. I'm kind of in agreement there. I mean, we remember what happened last year with the Vikings. He had a huge opportunity to get a big-time contract, and he just completely blew that opportunity and looked really, really bad. But that Seattle defense is no joke. I do agree with you there, David. So the Eagles, we talk about this offense, and it's a shame that Brian can't be on the show today because the title of the stream is Have the Eagles Been Keeping a Secret this season? And he kind of started this last week on the episode where he posed the question, do you think the Eagles are holding back and not opening up their entire playbook until the playoffs? We had some fun on X with some tinfoil hat gifts, and it's been a fun conversation to circle around. I know you posted something as well that got some traction. So I personally don't have the tinfoil hat on, but I do think there are some aspects and some keys that we could maybe see that, they have held things back. And I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think, do I think the whole offense has been held back? No. Are there, like you said, aspects of it? Absolutely. And a lot of that comes down to is if Jalen Hurts is comfortable threatening defenses with his legs. That's been the aspect that's been missing. It's hurt with the RPOs. And if Jalen's ready to roll with his legs, the Eagles are going to surprise some teams in the postseason because despite an offensive line that's still searching for the magic they had in the 2024 season, when Hurts starts moving, he's a cheat code because you don't know who's carrying what. You don't know, if Saquon's going, if Tank is going, if he's going. They do have the ability to be very tricky if they want to. And it is something that has been missing this entire season. And I do think it was intentional, whether it was Jalen not wanting to take the hits, whether it was the offense trying to preserve them. Who knows? You might never know, and you might find out in March, after they, win and this thing is over. But I do think if anything is, worthy of the tinfoil hat, it's that.
Yeah, I saw a graphic when they were talking about Jalen Hurts on Birds Huddle on NBC Sports Philadelphia. These are the career playoff stats for Jalen Hurts. He's 6-3. He's 3 wins shy of matching Donovan McNabb's record for most wins in the playoffs at 9. He's completed nearly 67% of his passes, over 1,800 yards passing, touchdown and interception ratio, pretty good, 10-3. Rating 95.4. The rushing yards, as you alluded to, 381 to go with 10 rushing touchdowns. Now, I know a lot of them are credited to the tush push, which the Eagles just have not been nearly as successful this year with it. But those are really good numbers in the playoffs. And I know that there's a lot of haters of Jalen Hurts. One of our TikToks created quite the stir about talking about if Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback in the NFC in this playoff bracket. But this man just seemingly shines brightest when the games mean the most. I mean, we've seen it in 2 Super Bowls. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in both. Even though they lost the first one, he had a better game, I believe, than Patrick Mahomes. It just came down to who had the ball last offensively. And, of course, that tough DPI call there at the end. But Jalen Hurts just finds a way to win. So, to me, I agree. I think if they can let Hurts go a little bit, there's no more next week starting Sunday. If you lose, you're done. Then questions start surrounding the team. Who's going to be back? Who's not going to be back? What's going to happen with this offense? All that kind of stuff. And this is a good team where offensively, if they can just be average, right now they're just below league average, averaging about 22 points per game. They're 19th in that category. If they could just add another score, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, and average 24 to 27 points during this playoff stretch, this defense can hold every offense, I believe, to 17 to 20 points. I truly do, even for how hot San Francisco is. And we're going to talk about the 49ers here in a little bit, but I just think that that's the formula. I mean, we saw on Hard Knocks the Nick Sirianni graphic with the record when they don't turn the ball over and when they win the turnover battle. We all have to agree and just accept that this is the style of football that they want to play. They pretty much did it last year. It was kind of masked because we were all in awe of what Saquon Barkley was doing, and in turn, it opened up the offense where they looked pretty damn good. So I do think this offense can take a step forward. It's going to be pivotal, in my opinion. I think that's obviously what's going to hold this team back is Kevin Patullo and the offense, as we have a viewer here saying Patullo won't be back. And that kind of segues me into my next question here as we still stay on the offensive side of the football. If the Eagles make a deep run, David, or they win the Super Bowl, do you think Kevin Patullo remains the offensive coordinator next season and gives Jalen Hurts some semblance of continuity with that position?
My answer will not surprise many, but the reason probably will. No, I do not think he'll be back as OC. But the reason is because he'll probably be HC. He's probably going to get a head coaching job. I know a lot of fans out there don't believe it. There are teams interested in him. That is absolutely factual. In what capacity, I don't know. But there are teams that like him. He will have a job within days of the Philadelphia Eagles letting him go if that were to happen. But yeah, if they make a run and win a Super Bowl, there are teams that, as much as the Eagles hate it, there are a lot of teams that look at that graphic you were talking about, 41-2 when they win the turnover battle, 35-6 when they don't have any giveaways, 53-14 when they just get one turnover in the game. And, a lot of people forget last year, the offense outside of Saquon wasn't that great either, but winning the Super Bowl is like an etch-a-sketch to people's brains of the previous season. You forget, everything bad that kind of transpired, because they just hit it on a next level in that postseason last year. And, you kind of forget all the struggles. You forget, like, for the first 6 weeks, everybody was calling for Kellen Moore to be fired. There are people out there with signs, run the ball, all this crap over the years. I mean, it doesn't really matter who's the OC. Nobody's ever really liked their style of play. That's just the way it is, because especially lately, because with all the talent on offense, everybody's expecting fireworks every single week. And that's just not how the Eagles are going to play. And I don't think they're going to change their philosophy that much in the postseason either. I think the play calling might be a little different with the run game, like we alluded to, which could put 10 more points on the board. So the scoreboard might look like they've, reinvented the wheel here, but they're going to still be conservative. I mean, you mentioned the one game where Hurts outplayed Mahomes but lost the game. He looks at it as he lost that game because of that fumble that was returned for the touchdown. That's weighed on him ever since then. And you have seen a totally different player since that moment. He does control the ball. And as far as the touchdowns and the tush pushes, I am interested to see that, because some of that could have been him too. Like him just, an unwillingness to do that, and a desire not to do it. And all the touchdowns in the postseason last year weren't just tush pushes. I mean, you remember the 50-yard strike Jalen had against the Rams to get the game going. I mean, he is a threat basically from anywhere on the field. If he gets a crease like that, he just hasn't, taken advantage of it this season. And another thing about Patullo, whatever, the Birds have the best red zone percentage in the NFL. And that goes not unnoticed by every other team in the league. So we complain a lot of things about what Kevin Patullo has done, but the 71% red zone success rate, the minimal turnovers, a lot of teams look into that and say, hey, that's how we can win too. We can get a defense and win the same way. So yeah, I do think that if they win, he's gone. If they get bounced in round one, he's gone. So yeah, I don't think his future is, maybe that bright with as far as staying in Philadelphia, but I think it's for two completely different reasons.
Duck says we need to just have Patullo call 4 full quarters of offense where they can move the ball and give the defense a breather. I agree with him 100% there. You cannot let this defense play up to 55, 60 snaps against this Niners offense, who have actually been cooking since like week 11. They've been averaging 30 points a game, and Brock Purdy is playing arguably his best football. To put a bow on the offensive side of things, the Eagles right now are 19th in the league, as I mentioned, just below league average, averaging 22.3 points per game. They did score 30 points 4 times this season. I don't think they need 30 against this high-flying offense of the Niners. I do think this defense can clamp down on San Francisco. But the last topic of offense I want to discuss is, will we see more Tank Bigsby? Because I think the Eagles absolutely need to incorporate him more. He looked really solid, and that was against a Washington team that I know has been banged up. They were already booking their trips to Cancun, but that was also behind a backup offensive line. I just do not understand the usage or the lack thereof regarding Tank Bigsby. You look at his game logs. He logged 1 carry, his first carry as an Eagle in week 7 against Minnesota. The following week, he ripped off 9 runs for 104 yards. Everybody's like, all right, solid backup running back. Give Barkley a couple of, snaps off, give him a breather. The next, 5 games here, 6 games? He had 11 carries over that entire stretch before he had 57 yards in a blowout win over the Raiders. To me, it just doesn't make sense. Saquon Barkley, a phenomenal runner. I don't think he took a step back this year like some indicated. I truly believe it's the poor offensive line play. They've struggled run blocking pretty much all season. The injuries don't help, obviously. And when you've got defenders in the backfield before you're even getting the ball in your gut, no matter how elusive Saquon Barkley is, that is a tough task to be getting any type of positive yardage. However, I tweeted this out. You look at some of the prominent NFC playoff teams in this bracket, and they are all utilizing a 2 running back setup. The Seahawks might be the most prevalent with Kenneth Walker III and Zach Charbonnet. The Rams, which Sean McVay, they're even starting to do it. Blake Corum has really come on as of late, splitting carries with Kyron Williams. And then we saw firsthand what the Bears did with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai, both going for over 100 yards, both scoring a touchdown. So for me, I'm not saying Tank Bigsby and Saquon Barkley need to have a 50-50 timeshare, but Tank Bigsby needs to get at least 6 to 8 carries on Sunday, maybe even 10. But I would be happy with 6 to 8. Give Barkley a little breather and just see what Tank can do.
Yeah. Saquon is obviously he's going to be central to the rushing plan, but Tank Bigsby has earned some touches. What he did over the season with limited touches and then again versus the Commanders in the season finale was impressive. That can't be denied. I think one of the reasons they don't utilize him or haven't utilized him as much this season, the way they did, is because of their aversion to risk. He had 4 fumbles last year. And I think, in 168 attempts or something, he had 4 fumbles. And I do think that has played a role in them, wanting to allow him to get touches. I don't know that he's fully trusted in the way that Saquon is, but like you mentioned, some pro set split backs, I formation, just some ways to get both running backs on the field would just add yet another dimension to these RPOs and everything they could do. Then you'd have to worry about Tank, Saquon, or Hurts. You have no idea where the ball's going. And I do think it's something that they're going to have to take advantage of. I mean, they've seen what all of us have seen as well. At times they're stubborn to a fault, but, there's no style points now. It's survive and advance or go home. It's time to unleash whatever it was that you thought might be working or thought could work. It's time. It's all everything on the table now, man. So I do think you'll see that. I don't know that he'll get 10, but 6, like you said, 6, 7. I think not on purpose. He should get that many. He definitely should.
Yeah, I agree. And the playoffs are a great time to just have those unlikely heroes, right? The Freddie Mitchells, the Corey Clements. I mean, there's been guys that have been able to step up where they didn't really have a huge role on the team and come up with big plays. And I just think this is a perfect spot for Tank Bigsby to kind of cement his legacy, if you will, with the Eagles. And, oh, by the way, he's under contract for next season too. So really excited to see how they utilize him. I'll be pretty upset if they don't. I just think it's a bad use of resources for a guy that has shown some flashes this season. Duck also adds in here that A.J. Dillon is also underutilized. A.J. Dillon, I sometimes forgot that he's on the team, other than that he brought in that positive bunny that lasted a whole week.
It was the same reason. If you remember the last game that he was utilized much in, it ended with him fumbling the ball and the Eagles losing the game. And that's a wrap. That's just not the way they're not going to play those types of players this year. They don't believe they can overcome it. And they're probably right to some extent because of the way they call plays. They're not going to overcome, being behind the chains and turning the ball over both simultaneously. It just isn't going to work.
We got somebody saying, I hope the Eagles have been playing possum all season, going back to what we talked about earlier with the title of our stream. If the Eagles have been keeping this a secret the whole season, we'll find out soon enough on Sunday at 4:30 at Lincoln Financial Field. Love the chat. It's super active. Thank you for everybody for watching so far. We've got a little bit more to go here on Flipping the Birds. I'm Corey Nido. He's David Neese. We certainly appreciate the support. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. And give us a like and a follow over on X at Philly Sports Network and, of course, at Flipping the Birds. David, myself, Brian, who is out of commission today dealing with an illness. We certainly enjoy talking with all of you about the Eagles. So, David, let's talk about this upcoming matchup. They do take on the San Francisco 49ers, a team that has kind of been a little bit of a rival for the Eagles. I know they haven't played since that beating that the 49ers gave Philadelphia back in 2023 here at the Link. There was some bad blood between the two teams a couple of years ago with the fans and everything. But this is a 49ers team that has been extremely impressive over the last 2 months offensively with Brock Purdy returning. The defense has been absolutely decimated by injuries. It's really remarkable that this team racked up 12 wins the way it did. They had Mac Jones looking pretty good. That's a testament to Kyle Shanahan's skills. But what stands out to you the most so far when you're just kind of starting to dive into this matchup against San Francisco?
Yeah, you talk about the last matchup was, the game that was essentially like a Super Bowl for the 49ers, it seemed like. I think even Big Dom mixed it up with one of the players on the sidelines that week. Aside from that game, losing the championship game the way they did 3 years ago has lingered for them. The team and the fans have spent 3 years insisting that the game, didn't count or would have been different if Brock Purdy had, played the whole game, and that the outcome would have been different. So Sunday's their opportunity to prove that. They are going to have him. Unfortunately, they are riddled with a lot of injuries on the other side of the field. But what the game comes down to me is, from a defensive standpoint, the defense have only given up 14.5 points per game since like week 8. Much like last year, as the season's gone on, the defense has gelled and become even more dominant. Brock Purdy is going to rely on his all-world weapon, Christian McCaffrey, to get the job done. CMC has the ability to change the game with one crease or cut, and Vic Fangio and his defense are going to need to stay disciplined to prevent him from doing so. Over pursuits turn short gains into long ones, and San Francisco is going to test every angle they can. You mentioned Shanahan. He's one of the best at scheming ways to get the ball to CMC in space, and they get it to him often. He is going to be utilized. He will line up everywhere, out wide in the slot. He'll break out of the backfield, and he is his best in space. So, in my opinion, defensively, if you shut down CMC, you win the game.
No, I agree. I think that's a good analysis there. Vic Fangio spoke to the media earlier today, and he was very complimentary of Kyle Shanahan, said that everything that they do offensively has a purpose. It's really packaged well together. He's a good play caller during the game, and Vic Fangio says you always have to know that. And the keys for the Eagles really is to not allow Purdy to do things out of structure, because you mentioned Christian McCaffrey and the way he's been able to line up anywhere on the field. He's a home run play waiting to happen. But Brock Purdy has a pretty uncanny ability to extend plays. I think that that might fly under the radar for some, but he can turn a broken play into something. And although this offense has some banged up guys, George Kittle, the tight end, is still nursing a sprained ankle, although he did play in that game against Seattle on Saturday to try and clinch the number 1 seed. Ricky Pearsall has been battling with a knee injury. He's trying to get back. They do have Jawan Jennings. But this is a quarterback that has experience too. And if you over pursue, like you mentioned, David, that can cause a lot of problems for what has been arguably the best defense in the league. They have been the best defense since Vic Fangio took over last year in terms of scoring defense with that 14.5-point margin. So I think that this San Francisco team, they certainly command the respect of the Eagles. Again, they are averaging 30 points a game since week 11. They are 10th in the NFL overall, averaging just under 26 points a game. Yards per game, they're averaging a little over 350. That's good for 7th. Surprisingly, although CMC is really good, the offensive line has taken a little bit of a hit, and offensively, they are 24th in rushing, which was a little surprising because we know how good Christian McCaffrey is. But yeah, this is an offense where they might not have Trent Williams. He's dealing with a hamstring injury, their star left tackle. So there's a lot of things going on. But I think what's scary about this Niners team is, I don't want to say they have nothing to lose, but you are kind of counted out going into this game with everything that you've dealt with, the injuries, having to fly across the country. They would love nothing more than to knock the Eagles out in the first round. So I mean, yes, they don't look good at times, and now they're on fire now, and they've got some injuries. But this is a Niners team that has a lot of experience under Kyle Shanahan. They made it to the Super Bowl a few years ago. So this is not going to be a cakewalk. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier, like when we were talking about who would you rather play, the first two things I always look at is the quarterback and whoever's calling the plays offensively, because they dictate everything. And Shanahan is great. And like you said, Purdy is highly underrated. I think a lot of fans just don't realize how good he is. He is extremely efficient player, and his escapability makes him extremely dangerous. You touched on the Eagles, should be able to win the trenches. That's what the Eagles invest in mainly. And this is perfect scenario for them to be going up against the depleted offensive line for San Francisco. I mean, this is a battle they should dominate. And if they do, everything is easier for everybody else. Quinyon, Adoree, and Cooper trying to handle all the outside and slot receivers, it gives them a huge advantage if, they can limit the Niners' ability to move the ball vertically, because they just won't have time if the line, is getting interior pressure. We're very fortunate that Jalen Carter is back, and he looked, really good in his time that he was out there. This is a game, to me, that the defense should have very little trouble containing, just due to the trenches alone. Despite everything else, they're built to do this, but there's always that one caveat where mobile quarterbacks have been a thorn in their side, and that is the one thing you'll have to take into account. And also just all of the Philadelphia Eagles 3 and outs and everything, you cannot keep them on the field like that. It's been a common theme about all these games. Even the Bills game, they almost lost because of that. They were on the field something like 40 snaps in the second half. It was insane. And you just, in one half, I mean, that just can't happen. And that would be the perfect scenario in which you give a game away, is just not being able to help your defense out, because otherwise they should dominate this.
Yeah, I agree. And we were talking about it earlier about the signs that the Eagles might show where they were holding back in the regular season. We mentioned Jalen Hurts running it more. I think you kind of mentioned it just there too, is they cannot afford to be going 3 and out. They need to be aggressive. They need to go for maybe a 4th down at midfield. They need to just call the right play, 3rd and 1, run it. Like, I know they love to go for those deep shots. If you see it there, if Jalen sees one-on-one with A.J. Brown, all right, obviously take that shot here and there, but you also have to worry and be mindful that this defense has played a lot this season. And yes, you can rely on them. That's a wonderful thing to have, but doing so too many times will come back and bite this Eagles team. We've got a comment here. I'm worried Kyle Shanahan will game plan to attack Adoree. We talked about it earlier, though. Adoree Jackson's been solid. I mean, is he Quinyon Mitchell? Absolutely not. But he's held his own. He's got a low ceiling and a solid floor. I mean, that's what we knew we were getting when they signed Adoree Jackson. So looking at that box score on Saturday, I mean, I don't know if you watched that game, David. That was an absolute just slobber knocker, smash mouth game. 13-3. The Seahawks won it to clinch the number 1 seed. Offensively, Niners looked bad. I mean, Brock Purdy, 19 of 27 for only 127 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, a QBR of 22.8. He was sacked 3 times. CMC only had 23 yards on 8 carries. And you look at the receiving core, Jawan Jennings led the way with 4 catches for 35 yards. George Kittle, Demarcus Robinson, Kendrick Bourne. I mean, these aren't guys that would scare you if you're this Eagles defense the way they're playing.
Yeah, the Seahawks suffocated them. I did watch that game, and it really wasn't a fun watch. It was kind of boring, and it just not they couldn't really do anything. And again, it came down just to the trenches. And San Francisco has had trouble against any team that kind of builds their defense via the trenches this year. All of the teams, like the Buccaneers, they build the same way, similar that the Eagles do, just investing in so many DTs and edge. And they struggled with them as well. So again, I think it's the perfect formula. You just got to keep them rested. You have to, you don't have to score every drive, but you got to move the ball. You got to have some drives here and there. You can't just consistently go 3 and out. That's about the only way I can see a path for the Niners to get a victory.
Yeah, and we're talking about how good the offense was for the Niners here. Conversely, on the defense, and we mentioned, and this has a lot to do with the injuries, but they have not been good since week 14. I mean, they are in the bottom 3 in points allowed per game. So, yeah, they're scoring 30, but they're averaging 25.5 points given up. They aren't turning the ball over, or forcing turnovers, I should say. They only have 2 takeaways, and they have allowed 6 yards per play. And I think one of the biggest things that could be in favor of the Eagles, because we mentioned the offensive line has struggled this year, but what they've been solid in, or nearly not as poorly in, is pass protection for Jalen Hurts. And this is a 49ers team that is struggling to generate pass rush. So I think if you get Lane Johnson back, and that this week of rest that a lot of players said in the locker room, yeah, I needed this week off. We want to be as fully healthy as possible. You're welcoming in a Niners team who not only has to travel across the country, they just got the crap kicked out of them in a physical game. And mentally, they were probably thinking, hey, if we win this game against Seattle, we could be home for the next month because the Super Bowl is out in San Francisco. So a huge flip in terms of the mindset as well. And there are certain aspects of this game that the Eagles can certainly exploit. The biggest issue, I think, and I don't know if you agree, David, is if Kevin Patullo can dissect that in this game film and game plan and scheme this offense to attack this Niners defensive weaknesses.
Yeah, I completely agree, because there are plenty of them. And like you mentioned, going back to week 14, I mean, almost everybody was dropping 30 on them. The weather probably is one of the reasons Seattle didn't, quite honestly. I mean, because they just played a different style of game. But yeah, I agree with that completely. And one other thing about the offensive line, I am a little curious, after the Eagles watched just how effective Drew Kendall was, that if Cam Jurgens struggles at all, if they would actually be comfortable enough to make a move. Because I think it was pretty apparent the difference in how they're playing, the difference in his ability, his burst, like I said earlier off the line, his ability to get outside. I mean, you watched him and Toth just blowing people up. And it's something that's not a knock on Cam and Landon. They're hurt, and they've been hurt since camp. Hell, one of them was hurt since Super Bowl. Cam barely played in the championship game or the Super Bowl because he was hurt. He was not even a starter in the championship game. He had to come in. So he has been hurt a very long time. And I thought it was pretty encouraging just how well they played. That's why I mentioned to start off the show about, the Toth injury being so big in my mind. But, I don't know if they'd make a move like that, but I would surely accept that if they did, because I think Kendall really looked good in that game. And like you mentioned, he is a player who wants to be on that field. This isn't a guy satisfied with being a backup. He studied Jason Kelce. He told me when he was drafted, Kelce was his favorite player. He watched him all his life. This guy wants to be on the field. And, I'm a huge Cam Jurgens fan, have been since his days at Nebraska. But when you're hurt, you're hurt. And if he's, a detriment to the team, I am curious to see if they'd make that move.
Yeah, I thought Drew Kendall held his own, also dealing with a rotating offensive line. I believe it was Matt Pryor. He had to bounce around to 3 different positions when Toth went down. I mean, this is a rookie who was able to handle a lot coming after him in that game. He comes from great pedigree. His father, Pete, was a first-round pick by the Seahawks in 96, played in 188 or started in 188 of his 189 games from 96 to 2008. So, I mean, this is a kid that can potentially take over the center position, if Cam Jurgens still just can't deal with the injuries, or maybe Drew Kendall just plays better than him down the road. I mean, it's not a bad guy to have in your back pocket.
And Cam played guards the first year here. They could always kick him over too.
Right. And Duck says move Jurgens here back to guard, you think? Yeah. I mean, that's a possibility. I think, as we said, there's no next week to figure it out. If you lose, you're done. So I think Nick Sirianni, Kevin Patullo, Jeff Stoutland, they all got to put their heads together and formulate a game plan here against a Niners team that, yes, they do have some firepower, but defensively, I mean, there's a lot to attack and a lot to pick on. They're going to be without their second best tackler in Bethune. Greenlaw might be out as well. Their leading tackler. I mean, they are just trying to piece this together here, if you will, if you're San Francisco. So I do think that this is an advantageous matchup for the Eagles, especially with the rest. So that's almost the end of our show here tonight. We got almost 300 viewers here this evening between YouTube and X. We really appreciate everybody tuning in and super locked in here as we break down this first round playoff game. This is normally the time where we kind of give our predictions and score predictions. Anybody in the chat, if you want to give your score predictions, feel free as well. But David, I'm going to throw it over to you here. 4:30 Sunday at the Link, prime time for me, at least, right in the middle of the day. No ridiculous Saturday or Monday game. Smack dab in the middle on Sunday. Your thoughts and prediction here for this game?
Yeah, I think the show's been trending that you can probably tell that I think the Eagles are going to win the game. I think they are the better team. And Jalen Hurts doesn't need to be perfect. He needs to be in control and not turn the ball over. And a conservative approach may not be what fans want to hear, but their aversion to turnovers, like we mentioned earlier, is probably what will continue to drive their play. Though I do expect them to open it up a little bit more. I think you've seen that in Nick Sirianni's tenure in the postseason. So I do think we might see some more RPOs, some two-set backs with the running backs out there. I formation probably not, but pro set, split backs, whatever. They need to do something to change it up a little bit, give Tank the ball some. And I just think Jalen Hurts' legs and his willingness to use them will really make a difference, because it doesn't just, it's not just so advantageous in the running game. It's also used to extend plays out of structure and get the ball down the field. It's just a big part of his game. So I believe in Jalen Hurts' ability to step up when the lights are brightest. I think it'll happen again. I have him as the player of the game, and I think the Eagles are going to put up 31 points, and I went with the Niners 23.
Sorry, 31-23?
Yes, sir.
All right, 31 points. That would be just the 5th time this season the Eagles score 30 or more points. I do as well believe the Eagles are going to win as we get some score predictions here. JJ has a lower scoring game, 17-13. Duck has 28-17. I'm kind of in that range with Duck there. I think it's going to be a 24-17 win for the Eagles. I just want to see them be a little bit above average. 30 points would be amazing, but if they can just find a way to get an extra field goal or an extra touchdown from what they're doing right now, I think that could be a big difference, because as I mentioned, I think this defense is good enough to hold any of these NFC teams to 17 points or less. I truly do. I think this pass rush is phenomenal. Jalen Phillips has been great. Jalix Hunt has been amazing. He is this year's Zach Bond, if you will, in terms of just having almost a Cinderella-like story where Jalix Hunt goes from playing in Ivy League football at Cornell, transfers, goes to the defensive line, starts to flash last year, and now he finishes the year leading the Eagles in sacks and interceptions. For the first time, I believe, in team history, it was that one player led the team in both categories, and it's odd to see that from a defensive lineman. So I think that this defense is going to be swarming. I think they do need to contain Brock Purdy, but I think Vic Fangio will dial everything up accordingly, and I have no worry in this defense, and I think maybe they get that extra touchdown. I'm going to say that they're going to get a pick six or a scoop and score, some type of touchdown defensively to really give this offense some confidence and also breathing room for the defense, because as we mentioned, they cannot be on the field for 55, 60 plays in this one, or the Eagles more than likely are heading home. So that will just about do it for this episode of Flipping the Birds. Again, guys, really appreciate you tuning in. Over 300 watchers here, probably one of our best shows of the season so far. We wish Brian was able to join us, but we certainly hope that he and his family feel a lot better. David, you should be on site at Lincoln Financial Field for this game, as we've got one final score prediction here. 42-7 wakes up in the postseason. All right. But yeah, guys, make sure you follow David on Twitter. David, where can they follow you?
Just David Neese PHL, which that's probably not that informative because of how crazy the spelling is, but you can go to Philly Sports Network, find us. All my handles are listed there. And just to reiterate what you just said about the defense, I would look for the Philadelphia Eagles defense to put up 7 points in this game. I think that's a real possibility.
I could help you and the other viewer there to get to 30 and 42 points. That's for sure. Yeah. So as always, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you follow David. He'll be providing live game coverage Sunday at the Link. You can follow myself at Corey_Nido on X. The two of us are also dipping our toes into the TikTok world. I don't want to say we're boomers, but we're definitely not the most privy with TikTok, but we're churning out some content there and at Flipping the Birds. And of course, you can follow Brian on X as well. Thanks so much for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of the week. If you're going to the game, have fun. If you're not, go out, watch it with some friends, your family, check out wherever you want to go. But we certainly appreciate the viewership. As always, please drop a like on the stream on YouTube and subscribe. It certainly helps us out. And give us a follow on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days. It certainly will be appreciated. He's David Neese. I'm Corey Nido saying so long to close out this episode of Flipping the Birds, and go Birds.
Flip.